I had the chance to talk to Avalon Hu, a designer with experience of working with a number of consultancies to currently working as a product designer at Adobe. Hear about her journey of going from engineer to designer.
Hi, this is Avalon. I'm a senior product designer at Adobe. I'm currently working on Adobe XD, which is a design tools for digital designers and anyone who want to jump in digital design.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a while. I met at Avalon a couple of years ago while you were working at us too. It's good to see you. I was wondering if maybe you can kind of rewind and maybe backtrack and talk about like where you're from, how'd you get started in design, what your interests are, but just to start.
I'm originally from Taiwan. I've been live in the U.S. since 2009, starting for my grad school actually. So it's been almost 10 years. And after graduating, I moved to New York for a job. So I've been in New York for over 7 years now.
Okay. Did you go to school for design? Were you formally trained in design?
Yeah. So a little bit context on what was I doing in Taiwan. So I was actually studying engineering, and I think throughout my life there are some art and design things I did on the side, but nothing really formalized. So during my college, I kind of took a year to do exchange student program. Actually went to California, and during that year, I kind of think about what do I really want to do in the future, and some idea came to my mind that I really want to combine what I have studied, engineering and maybe technology as well, with art and design, which I have done on the side, and I had a lot of joy doing it. So I started looking into some grad school programs that may help me get into the transition, and HCI, Human Computer in Action, came up, and it seems like a very cool areas. There's a lot of interesting work coming out. So that's why I decided to apply for HCI programs in the States, and then I finally decided to go to grad school at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and I spent 2 years there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I always find it interesting when I hear people who come from an engineering background, which is totally technical and totally a left-brained type of trade or skill. And then they make that transition into a design skill. How was that transition for you, coming from that engineering background to going into an HCI program and then getting formal design training?
I mean, I don't know if my design skills came from any formal training, since I never really went to a proper design school. So my design knowledge either came from just learning by doing, or a few classes I took in college or grad school around graphic design or UI design. So it's it just I see a need, and then I decide to learn it that kind of way. And I think for me the transition wasn't as hard. Probably because as I mentioned before, that I have been kind of doing it on the side, growing up. And when I was younger, I actually went to a fine art program for a couple of years. So that kind of, the right brain thinking, still something there. It just somehow life take me to the left brain during college. So it's kind of, it's a nice transition for me, in my point of view. Get to do something I know and something I like at the same time. Yeah.
Cool. So you said you work for Adobe. You just mentioned that. Adobe XD. What exactly is your role as a designer with Adobe? Or what was your role, or what is your role working on XD?
So in XD, we are a growing team. So now we have different designers in charge of different things in the product. And for me, I actually just joined the team like about 6 months ago, and I have been kind of working on the area of design tooling and onboarding experience. So design tooling, like, to make it easy to understand, is just like any design tools that you need to use, like when you're on a design tab, opening the app. I mean, what I make so far haven't been like in the public yet, so it's hard to really pinpoint that what I actually did. But yeah, and then in the future, I think people will be able to see more of my work in the product.
Well, what was your process?
I think the process really depends on the ask. Sometimes the ask could be very original and no one has done something similar before. Then we kind of always started with like, why this become a needs that we need to do. Like, I think a lot of time asking the why is part of the job of being a designer, to make sure that we have the right reason to spend our time on something, or it is a problem to solve. So I'll usually discuss with my PM to kind of talk about, what is this, why we're doing this, understand the timeline, constraints, and whether there are any resource like to point at us to why this is a could be a problem or something that we want to pick up. We do have a separate team or people helping us with the research. But I think as designer, say down the road, we finish our design. If we want to do research as well, then we totally have the chance to do it and kind of partner with a researcher to guide us to, get data that is helpful for us. Yeah. So after that first phase that you discover what, the task is, then I guess next step could be you do more research on your own, whether it's the design itself or more reasoning to support the design I'm about to make. And then I will propose a few design variations, whether to the team or to the PM, to get the product team to get feedback with, and then slowly narrowing down to one option, and then perhaps if there are chances that we can also show to the user to see if this is doable. Yeah, and eventually, we will sign it off and then move it on to development.
Cool. So we just talked a little bit about Adobe. I was wondering if maybe we could backtrack a little bit. I know we're kind of jumping around here, but we just backtrack to, you said you went to UM for HCI. How did you get started career-wise? What was your first job?
Okay, so when I was at the University of Michigan, the program is called is under the School of Information. I think they did a kind of really good job at putting us to in contact with the industry or something very hands-on that could help us build the skills that we actually need for jobs in the future. So I think I did maybe a few client projects at school to kind of get a sense around what is it like to actually be a designer for real. And during the summer in between the first and second year, most of us will take on internship, and my first internship was at Thomson Reuters, actually in New York City as well. I was on a team to work on portfolio manager software. And after that, by the time I graduate, I actually really want to be in the agency world. At the time, I love a lot of like work like coming from agency. They just look like so cool, like beautiful, and like that's where I thought like this is where design is supposed to be. So I got an offer from RGA, and that's how I moved to New York and start here. Yeah, and after that, I think so. Like my work in RGA are mostly working with consumer brands, a lot of web projects as well. And at the end, I want to have more focus on product. And I think that was about the time this kind of product design idea started rising. So kind of in pursuit of that, maybe this is not like a direct jump, but like I decided to join Us2, which is a like digital design studio from London, and then they just opened a new office when I joined. So my time with Us2 kind of involved with doing a lot of mobile design or like service design for clients, maybe range from like healthcare, consumer brands, sometimes hardware as well, like a smartwatch. So after being there for 3 years, I feel like, I need to be more specific on my pursuit of like product design. And I have seen a lot of really good work coming out from like tech companies or just like in-house team in general. And especially, as I mentioned before, like my background is more engineering and doing UX design. So I'm definitely a person that craving for complex design problem solving. So at that time, I feel like being in-house is a really good way to be exposed to more like complex problem, like design problems. And I found Adobe, and then I think it's a really good fit.
Cool. Yes, it seems like, that's really interesting that you kind of like went from, your love of consultancy work to kind of becoming like an in-house designer, working for a company that's delivering a product. How was that transition? And also, if maybe you could talk about like what are the differences between working at a consultancy as opposed to working as an in-house designer, working on one singular product.
So I think like both experiences are actually pretty fun, but they're like two different like work style or lifestyle in a sense. So in agencies, like I got to be on a variety of different projects, and each of them kind of lasts for a short amount of time. So I got to try out different things with different kind of clients from different fields. So I can quickly learn how does it like to design for healthcare? How does it like to design for tech? How does it feel like to design for media companies? And the more like different type of clients I have experience with, that eventually kind of come in like into my toolbox as one of my offerings that, hey, I have experience working, say, in healthcare. So like in the future down the road, and if there's more clients coming from healthcare or more clients coming from tech, then I can say, hey, I'm a pretty good fit for that. So I think it's like in the agency, it's more like kind of you get to build your own portfolio of very wide experience of what you can do. But I guess the downside will be you won't be able to follow through your design. You kind of make a proposal, you help the client get to the first, like, I guess the first phase of, signing off the design and build the first version of that design. But you likely won't have like the chance to iterate it or learn what actually happened with the design. Like in real world, did people like it, or and what about that design decision? How does that impact the user as well? That was that. And also like a lot of time you have to just quickly like bonding with the team and make sure that you communicate with the client so that we all kind of move forward on the same pace. But while like looking at in-house is that you get I have the opportunity to move very deep on one subject, and I get to follow through about the design decisions and what's the impact to the user as well, and iterate from there. And I think that as like working in a really big company like Adobe, one skill like coming handy is like communication, because we all design and responsible for like a different area in the app. So we have to make sure that we communicate with other people on the team so that we like what we do are consistent and not like reinventing the wheel once someone else already did it, or also that just like make sure your team's goal maybe align with another team's goal as well, because you guys have some dependency, that kind of situation. So that I think there is some similarity like when it comes to that communication, but I guess the work style are like the type of work and how to tackle the design problems are like different.
Cool. Yeah, I've always said that kind of like working for consultancy is kind of like you just kind of like get and a breadth of work, like you explained, you had like just wide experiences of just like different types of clients, different types of projects, which is cool. But just like you said, it's very surface. You don't really get to really dive in deep, as opposed to when you work in-house, you get to like really dive in deep and focus in on certain areas of a product and kind of like take ownership on it.
Right.
So that's cool. So we talked a little bit about work. Let's talk about like some fun things, fun projects that you're working on or have worked on. I've seen some really cool illustration work from you. Maybe you might want to talk about some other projects that you might be working on outside of professional stuff.
I think that illustration is probably my biggest side project right now. So this kind of all started with like become more serious since I did my 100-day challenge last year. To be honest, I didn't do exactly 100 days, but by doing it frequent enough that it kind of reconnect myself with the kind of my passion, like back to like art and design, because I mean in the past couple of years I'm definitely more focused on like UX and UI stuff, and then kind of forgot about that areas of my interest. So like that 100-day challenge is really good way for me to get back into it again. So I think that my goal or like around that project is just continue doing and figure out my own style or like my own voice in it. So hopefully like in the future I got to do something cool, I don't know, could be for editorial stuff on the side. But I guess it's a unknown, and I'll keep it that way for a while and continue exploring, I'll say.
That's what's all about, exploration and searching.
Yeah.
And so you never know like where you're gonna end up.
Yeah.
It's all about the journey.
Yeah. Exactly.
So just backtrack. What's the 100-day challenge? Like, is that like a design a day, or maybe do like a illustration a day, or what is that exactly?
I think that whole 100-day project was started a couple years ago by this designer named is Luna, and I think now it's like every year about the same time. I don't quite remember the day. Something like the beginning of April. People will choose a topic they want to draw or do. That could be like writing a diary every day, or draw flowers every day. Like someone, like people can do pretty much whatever they want. But be consistent with doing it 100 days. And I guess everyone kind of enter into that 100 day with different goal. You could be, get back onto a skill, or just to know themselves better, through this journey, as you mentioned before. Yeah,
that sounds interesting, like a cool challenge. It just sounds like a way to, like you said, just a way to kind of I guess in your case, to step away from work and do something that you like and enjoy. But I could also possibly see it as a way of building your skills. Like if you want to get into, let's say, writing, write an article a day, or kind of be consistent at writing a blog entry or something like that. That actually sounds like a pretty cool project. I'll have to look into it a little bit more. Okay, one last question. This is always up for debate. I know you're going to probably be a little bit biased here, but as far as design tools, which is your favorite?
My favorite design tools. I don't really have a lot of exposure to all of them. Cause thinking about Sketch, came up about 2-3 years ago, and that was actually the time I was about to transition to Adobe. So I only got to use it for a year or so, and back then when I do UX design, Sketch kind of adopted by visual designer first actually, and then UX designers are the second group kind of start using it, if that makes sense. I don't think that I have a favorite one. I think each design tools showed up for a reason, and we all kind of solving the problem differently. Adobe is more looking at could we for XD, we're more looking at how can we streamline designers' workflow, right? Because thinking about before, I need to do, say, design at one place, prototyping in another place, sharing it at somewhere else. It will be kind of nice to do everything together. Right. And then now actually join a big company. What I'm trying to say is that I think everyone has their own preference. Yeah.
It's a personal choice.
It's a personal choice.
Yeah,
really.
and you use multiple tools when you go, because you might be using Sketch to do the actual, actually the build, but then you might be using have Photoshop open to do some photo editing, and then you might have Illustrator to work on maybe work on icons, stuff like that. So when you're producing, it's kind of a multitude of.
Yeah, because I would say when calling it streamline the design process doesn't say that you can only do everything at the same place. I think it's how to simplify the workflow so that you don't have to. So back then, probably still the same this way. It's when you have to make prototype from Sketch to somewhere else. When you need to make updates, you basically have to export all the artboards again to put into the whatever tools you want to prototype. But in XD, then you're designing prototypes in one place, so you can just add it without have to export it, re-upload, and change again, export it, re-upload again. I guess as you said, that photo editing and all that, every different software has its own niche. So if people do want to do photo editing, I would say yes, use Photoshop. You probably don't want to use XD for photo editing, but you can combine the two tools and make it easy for you. How do you like port like your Photoshop work into XD easily? So I think a lot of good things, coming out is also like, can we help our user and help our product be more integrated with each other? So that's easy for user to, use a couple tools together at the same time, but feel like they're one,
Cool.
Yeah.
So thanks, Avalon. I appreciate you, giving me the time. Any advice you want to give to like designers, like any skills, like what should designers be working on? And
advice. Yeah, I think when in schools, that a lot of time we spend would be using for learning skills. I think being a designer, a good design skills, execution are very important. But at the real world, what's more important is like your communication skill, your people skills, because doing digital design is never a one-man job. Only like a team can pull it off. So make sure that you have good relationship with your team, other designers, your developers, your PMs, because they're the person that could help you to bring your design forward and make it real. And only if we can move as a team so that we can move forward. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. Well said. And on that note, that's it. It's a wrap. Thank you. Thanks, Avalon. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks.